What if laziness isn't real and you've been blaming yourself wrongly? You've heard it 1,000 times. You're lazy. You lack discipline. You're not motivated enough. But what if everyone telling you this is fundamentally wrong? What if the real enemy isn't laziness at all, but something science is finally starting to understand? Recent neuroscience research reveals that what we call laziness is almost never actual laziness. It's a misdiagnosis. A cover story we tell ourselves because we don't understand what's actually happening in your brain. The uncomfortable truth: society has built an entire framework of shame around something that isn't even real. And that framework is destroying your ambition far more than any actual laziness ever could. For centuries, laziness was the convenient explanation. You're not getting things done? You're lazy. You're avoiding your goals? Lack of character. This narrative is so embedded in our culture that we don't even question it anymore. But here's what's happening beneath the surface: when someone struggles to start a task, society immediately reaches for laziness as the diagnosis. It's simple. It's satisfying. It requires no further investigation. The problem is that laziness, true, voluntary idleness from a place of not caring, is actually incredibly rare. What we're really seeing is a collection of hidden obstacles. Maybe it's decision fatigue from too many competing priorities. Maybe it's fear of failure masked as procrastination. Maybe it's your nervous system in a state of dysregulation. Society doesn't see these things because they're invisible. They don't show up in a glance. So instead, we blame character. We blame willpower. We blame you. And that blame becomes a weight that makes everything harder. Understanding this shift changes everything about how you approach your own productivity. Executive dysfunction is one of the most misunderstood phenomena in neuroscience. It's the brain's struggle with planning, organizing, initiating tasks, and managing time. And it looks almost identical to laziness. You see someone who can't seem to start their work. They delay. They procrastinate. They feel stuck. A lazy person would do the same thing. But the mechanism is completely different. With true laziness, there's a choice. A decision not to act. With executive dysfunction, the person wants to act. They genuinely want to. But their brain isn't generating the signal that gets them moving. It's like trying to drive a car where the ignition is broken. The engine is fine. The fuel is fine. You just can't get it started. Someone with executive dysfunction doesn't need motivation speeches or discipline strategies. They need systems. They need environmental design. They need external structure. A person with ADHD, for instance, might struggle to clean their room for weeks. Not because they don't care, but because their brain can't translate the abstract goal of cleanliness into sequential actions. Give them a checklist? Suddenly they complete it in 20 minutes. The laziness narrative misses this entirely. Here's something neuroscience has discovered that completely reframes the laziness conversation: your brain has a specific energy budget. And that budget gets depleted by things that have nothing to do with how hard you're working. Every decision you make costs energy. Every time you resist a distraction, that's energy. Emotional stress, even subtle background anxiety, drains your mental fuel tank. Sleep deprivation doesn't just make you tired, it severely limits how much executive energy you have available for starting tasks. Many people wake up and immediately face email, notifications, decisions about breakfast, what to wear, what to prioritize. By 9 in the morning, before they've done any actual work, they've already spent half their daily energy budget on trivial decisions. Then they wonder why they feel lazy when it comes time to tackle meaningful work. They're not lazy. They're depleted. A person managing chronic stress, grief, or even subtle health issues is operating on a reduced energy budget and doesn't even realize it. Society sees someone struggling to work and assumes character failure. Science sees someone running on empty and suggests recovery, systemic rest, and energy management strategies. Your brain runs on dopamine. This neurotransmitter isn't just about pleasure, it's the currency of motivation itself. When your reward system is functioning optimally, starting tasks feels natural. Your brain generates the impulse to act. But modern life has fundamentally broken this system for many people. Social media, streaming services, and notification-based apps deliver instant hits of dopamine without requiring you to do anything difficult. Your brain adapts. It learns that real work, which requires patience, sustained effort, and delayed gratification, delivers dopamine far more slowly. So it stops generating motivation for real work. You're not lazy. Your reward system has been hijacked. A study conducted at Stanford showed that people who regularly consume high dopamine content showed significantly reduced motivation for less immediately rewarding activities. They literally couldn't generate the same neural impulse to work. The situation was reversible, though. When they reduced consumption of instant reward content and gradually returned to challenging tasks, their dopamine system recalibrated. Their motivation returned. What society calls laziness is often a dopamine recalibration problem. Anxiety and laziness look almost identical from the outside. In both cases, you're not doing the thing. You're avoiding it. You're feeling stuck. But the internal experience is completely different. Anxiety creates a physical sensation of dread attached to the task. Your nervous system is in fight or flight mode. Starting the task feels genuinely dangerous to your body, even though intellectually you know it isn't. So you avoid it to reduce the anxiety. This isn't laziness. This is your nervous system protecting you, albeit in a counterproductive way. Research shows that perfectionism, often mistaken for ambition, actually creates a high anxiety feedback loop. The stakes feel impossibly high. You're terrified of failure. So you don't start. Society sees the non-starting and calls it laziness. The anxious person sees themselves as lazy too, adding shame on top of the existing anxiety. This compounds the problem. The actual solution is nervous system regulation, not discipline. Breathing techniques, physical movement, breaking the task into smaller pieces so it feels less threatening. A person paralyzed by anxiety needs completely different support than someone who's genuinely lazy. So how do you actually know? How do you distinguish between real laziness and one of these other phenomena? Here's a practical framework. True laziness involves a conscious decision not to care. You know what you should do. You have the energy. Your nervous system is calm. But you choose not to act because the outcome doesn't matter to you. This is actually quite rare. Most people who think they're lazy fall into a different category. Ask yourself these questions: if I broke this task into much smaller steps, would I do it? If someone else depended on me, would I find the energy? If this task gave me immediate reward feedback, would I start? If I exercised and slept well for a week, would my motivation return? If I removed distractions from my environment, would I focus better? If you answer yes to most of these, you're not dealing with laziness. You're dealing with systemic exhaustion, anxiety, executive dysfunction, or reward system dysregulation. Real laziness wouldn't change based on these factors. But the solutions would. You're not broken. You're not lacking character. You're operating in a system that hasn't been optimized for how your particular brain works. If you're not dealing with true laziness, motivation-focused solutions won't work. You don't need more willpower. You don't need to grind harder. You need to shift from a character-based framework to a systems-based framework. Instead of asking, "Why am I so lazy?" ask, "What system needs to change?" Instead of relying on motivation, design for consistency. This single shift transforms everything. Someone struggling with executive dysfunction stops beating themselves up and starts building checklists. Someone depleted stops forcing themselves to work and starts prioritizing recovery. Someone with anxiety stops judging their avoidance and starts regulating their nervous system. Someone with dopamine dysregulation stops forcing discipline and starts gradually recalibrating their reward system. The behavioral shift is from self-blame to self-knowledge. From shame to systematic problem-solving. From motivation-dependent strategies to environment-dependent strategies. This doesn't mean giving up. It means redirecting that same intensity toward understanding how you actually function. Once you do, the obstacles that look like character flaws reveal themselves as solvable problems. Your ambition doesn't return because you became a better person. It returns because you stopped fighting against your own neurobiology. The laziness myth isn't just a minor misunderstanding. It's a framework that keeps millions of people trapped in shame when they should be seeking solutions. You're not lazy. You're dealing with invisible obstacles. You're navigating a brain that runs on systems science, not motivation. The moment you accept this, everything changes. Your approach shifts. Your self-judgment dissolves. And your actual ambition, the real drive that was always there beneath the shame, finally emerges. If you want more videos like this, subscribe and follow Mind Architect. See you in the next one.